Very good. So folks are still joining us, but I think we'll get underway. I'm Mary Clark. I'm the Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor at DU. You may wonder to yourself, what is a provost? Many have and many will. Provost is the Chief Academic Officer of the university. In other words, I work with the folks on this screen, the deans and vice provosts, as well as the faculty of the university to oversee the academic programming of the university at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. Today we'll be focused on the undergraduate education, and I want to pause and thank you for joining us and thank you for entrusting either your student or, if you're a student, your college career with us. We're thrilled to have you. I, like you, am new to the DU community. I started in mid-July, and I'll tell you what attracted me most to the DU community, and I think you'll hear a flavor of that in today's programming. It is first and foremost the sense of dynamism that I ascertained in my on-campus interview and all my interactions with DU community members. A sense of dynamism here at DU and in Denver and the larger region. DU is a university, a private university committed to the public good, and that's something that you really sense in the research that our faculty are doing, the coursework that our students are pursuing, the sense of commitment to the well-being of others that I see with our staff, our students, and our faculty. And then lastly, the thing that stood out for me most when I was interviewing and getting to know the DU community was the sense of joy that faculty and students derived from their work with one another. And so at my initial interview, I was given one question and I asked folks, what do you love most about DU? And the student on the committee immediately said, well, working with the faculty. And the faculty on the committee immediately said, well, working with the students. And that sense of joy and mutuality of enjoyment and engagement has been quite palpable. So I welcome you into this community and think you will really enjoy your engagement with DU. Well, let me introduce the folks who are on the screen, and I'll ask you if you can wave as you are introduced so individuals know who you are. And I'll begin with Dean Vivek Chowdhury. Dean Chowdhury is the Dean of our Daniels College of Business, which incorporates a number of departments and fields, including accounting and finance, hospitality, management, marketing, and real estate. So if you have an interest or your student has an interest in any of those fields, that would be the place for you. I'll also highlight, and again, I learned this in my interview, that the Daniels College of Business was one of the first business schools in the United States to integrate ethics into its curriculum, and it's really played a leading role in that regard. Jennifer Karis is next up. Jennifer Karis is Vice Provost for Academic Affairs, which oversees both undergrad and graduate education. And again, today we'll be focused on the undergraduate. She is also a teaching associate professor of sociology and criminology. So we're very pleased to have her with us. Andre Kutatalatse is Dean of the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, which includes the biological sciences, chemistry, geography, mathematics, and physics and astronomy. So thank you, Andre, for joining us. Andre is a distinguished scholar and indeed has been recognized with DU's highest academic distinction. So very pleased to have him with us. Fritz is Dean of the Joseph Corbell School of International Studies, which offers programs not only in international studies, but also in public policy. Fritz and I were just talking yesterday about some of the major themes that the Corbell School is engaged with this year and really for the long term related to democracy and social equality or inequality, economic access, and other issues of security and sustainability. So if those issues attract you, then the Corbell School is the place for you. Danny McIntosh, always outfitted with a bow tie and offered to teach us how, is the Dean of the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, which includes a wide range of the liberal arts, from anthropology to urban studies. I don't think you have zoology, or I would have said A to Z. Dean McIntosh's own background is in psychology, which is one of the most popular majors on campus, and one in which you could pursue a minor if so interested. And then we have Haluk Agman, is the interim dean of the Ritchie School of Engineering and Computer Science. Dean Agman's scholarship is in electrical engineering, but as you heard from the title of the school, they have electrical engineering as well as computer science. You can major in game development if that's your thing, so you can develop the next generation of Minecraft and engage my sons along with other folks. I was going to say adolescents, but I think Minecraft attracts beyond that age group. So thank you all for joining us today. And Danny, I'm going to kick it off with you. There have been lots of questions in the press, whether it's specific to higher ed or the more general press, about the value of college education broadly, and then more specifically about the value of a liberal arts education. And I'd love for you to share with us some of your thoughts on that.
I'd be happy to do that, and I'll answer the first question is really very easy. And if you looked at this month's issue of Inc. magazine, you saw an article that produced data from yet another source, the Mellon Foundation this time, talking about how while starting salaries in science, engineering, and the pre-professionals are higher, or there's more earning out of the gate, that those advantages decrease over time. And in fact, there's an advantage to flexibility for more broadly educated individuals. Really critical. The article also talked about how data from the Harvard's Equality of Opportunity Project indicated that these advantages to a broad liberal arts degree are accrue regardless of the background of the individuals. But that's just sort of the small answer about, is there an advantage, is there a benefit, is there benefit at all to a liberal arts degree? And the data repeatedly says there's great benefit to that. But at DU, the answer is a little bit broader and better than that. And that is, what about breadth of education? And I'd say at DU, we provide the Goldilocks answer. We provide the just right experience of small, intimate courses combined with a breadth of opportunity across liberal arts and professional colleges. So I'll say the punchline of what I'm going to say is, regardless of what you're majoring in, regardless if you're a historian or a software engineer or a biologist or an international studies major or an accountant, at DU, you can and should be taking classes in all the colleges represented here. Because all the evidence shows that it's that breadth of opportunity, the breadth of skills you get from taking classes across all of these colleges, that will make the difference in the long run. My college itself, as Mary indicated, is large. We have about 2,000 majors, about 250 faculty members. And what we focus on in arts, humanities, and social sciences is in understanding people, understanding what they create, understanding what they believe, what they think, how they behave, what they've done. And we learn how to think about people and how to work with people. So I would say the liberal arts are only worth taking if you're a person, or if you might be working with people or interacting with people later on. If you or your student falls into that category, then taking some classes in the liberal arts, in the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences is going to be an advantage. Some examples I want to share. People wonder about what can you do in the long run with a liberal arts education.
You could be a provost.
You could be a provost, for example. I'll point out that Andrew Fauci was a classics major. The Mike Millay, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was a political science major. DU alumna and Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, another political science major here. But sometimes you actually end up with a job in your field. So DU alum Chris Broderick was a classical guitarist major in Lamont, and of course he became the lead guitarist for Megadeth in his career. So you can see how whatever you learn, there's lots of different directions you can go with that. The underlying point I want to make is that at DU, you can take history from historians if you're a computer science engineer. You can take marketing from a marketing professional if you're a history major. So regardless of what it is you want to do, you have the opportunity to be in classes with people with different interests. You have the opportunity to take classes from experts in a wide variety of areas. And whether you're in psychology or communications or history or philosophy, you're going to be taking classes across different areas. And regardless of which college you're majoring in, you will be taking classes, or your student will be taking classes in the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. That's because the faculty at the university across colleges know that those fundamental skills, that fundamental insight you get about people by taking broad common curriculum across a variety of areas is what's going to prepare you for the future. Most of us in 2020 are aware that predicting the future is a risky game. Most of us are aware that we don't know what's going to happen, even more so this year and the years to come. What you can get at DU by taking classes from all the colleges here is to have the skills and the thinking and the toolkit to be able to address whatever happens and be a leader in whatever happens. So some of the last advice I would give, to make sure that my colleagues also have a chance to say something, is that make sure to get advising early. Talk with your professors. Keep talking with your professors. You may have taken history in high school and not liked it. Take history here and find out what it really is like. You may have taken biology in high school and not liked it. Take biology here, because you'll find out that it really is much more fascinating than you would have imagined. That's not because you went to a bad high school. It's because the hands-on, apprenticeship, discovery orientation of our classes is going to lead you to open up new ideas. So parents, if your student changes majors once, twice, 3 times, they're typical. And that's just fine. Encourage them in that exploration, because we want to guide them in that. When my youngest son, many of you probably with me, shared with your children something along the lines of, if all your friends jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff too? I did that, of course. And then when my son went away to college, he texted me a picture of him and his friends literally jumping off a cliff into a river. And he knew that I would worry about this, so he also texted me, "Don't worry, Dad, it was my idea." So it certainly feels like there's going to be risk-taking, and there is, and it's what you want. This year, that may feel like there's more risk-taking. We're doing everything we can to keep this a safe environment, intellectually, socially, and physically, so that exploration can happen across all these areas throughout the time your students are here at the University of Denver. This is an amazing 4 years. It's going to be even more amazing the next 4 years. And we're happy to have you and your students as part of the DU community, because not only are we hoping to change you, but we know and look forward to how you're going to be changing us. Welcome to DU. I'm looking forward to seeing you virtually and on campus in the months to come.
Very good. Thank you, Danny. Thank you. Andre, you are yourself so engaged in research that I'm going to put this question to you. What sort of undergraduate research opportunities are there, and how might students learn about them?
Thank you, Mary. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Andre Kutatiladze, Dean of the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. Welcome, parents. We've been preparing all summer for your students to arrive, and we will continue working in the next 3 weeks to make sure that everyone has safe learning environment on campus. So your student will be joining a vibrant academic community at the University of Denver, and we will challenge them intellectually and help them grow professionally and personally, more so in this extraordinary times. At the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, NISM for short, we have more than 1,000 of undergraduate, graduate majors, science majors. As Provost Clark mentioned, the college has 5 academic departments. Biological sciences, biology, as some of you may know, is one of the largest majors on campus. Chemistry and biochemistry, geography and the environment, mathematics and physics and astronomy. So Mary is asking me to sort of focus more on undergraduate research, which I'm happy to do. Our faculty are wonderful teachers, researchers, and practitioners. Many of them have competitive research grants, which support their research and scholarship. Experimental sciences are expensive. Our research active faculty help create and finance the research infrastructure, and in doing so, they help create and all these wonderful opportunities for our undergraduate students to engage in experiential learning, undergraduate research, which is critical for their training and their long-term career aspirations. I would argue, and data supports it, that research is the most sophisticated form of learning, and experiential learning is, right? This year, obviously, there are additional challenges for undergraduate research per se, but your students shouldn't worry about it. The majority of them will start their exploration of research labs later on, most of them in their junior and senior year. But of course, as freshmen, they will be exposed from day one to science labs held in a safe hybrid fashion. So overall, in the fall quarter, we at NISM plan that more than 70% of science classes will have a considerable face-to-face component. And as Danny mentioned, just talk to your advisor, talk to a professor, talk to your peers and senior students. There are millions of ways you can engage with the research labs. Besides these research opportunities for our students, there is another aspect why you parents should be interested in knowing that many of our faculty are research active. Credentialing of our faculty is done by their respective professional societies outside of this university. I can tell you all day long how wonderful our faculty are, and they are. But the fact is, you don't need to take my word for it. All you need to know is our faculty are competitive in obtaining federal research grants, publishing research papers in top-rated scientific journals, and otherwise competitive in their respective fields. That's how you, the parent, know that your student will have direct access to all these great minds that we recruited and hired. Well, we can talk some more about long-term plans, research aspirations, but for now, we need to be practical and focus on the first year or even the first quarter. So one word of wisdom for our undecided students, and there I couldn't agree more with my colleague, Dean Danny McIntosh. They will have time to check us or other DU colleges and schools out and decide on their majors, and they are well advised to take their time deciding. College is about a journey to explore and discover oneself, so they cannot know what they will be doing 5-10 years from now. No one could. So exploration is encouraged. Just think about it. More than half of them will be eventually employed in jobs which do not exist yet. So in the first year or two, my colleagues and I will be there for them to help make this important, informed decision. And the last word about research in the context of the unknown and jobs that do not exist yet. Exploratory research activities and experiential learning will help them to develop exactly the kind of skills they will need to, in the future, to deal with the unknown. And I can assure you that there will be plenty of that in the future. So I hope that most of you parents were happy so far with many communication channels available. Let's keep all these communication channels open. But when they start their classes, just lean back. It is a bittersweet moment to see your child leave for school, and it is a very exciting moment. And for those of you parents who are going through this for the first time, as a parent of twins who did graduate from college, I can confidently tell you that the whole college thing is definitely doable, even in hard sciences and math. So good luck with everything, and do not worry about your students. We will take good care of them, but do check on them from time to time. So thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And I'm the parent of twins who are about to start college. So I am with you in terms of practicing that leaning back. It doesn't come naturally, but I'll be very interested to see what all of your students do, as well as mine. They think they know what fields they want to go into, but I've been encouraging them, just as Andre and Danny both have expressed, to explore things that weren't offered in their high school curriculum and really take advantage of what's on offer in college. So Vivek, I am going to turn to you next. The business landscape has changed so dramatically in the last decade in the direction of startups and indeed self-employment. How does the Daniels College of Business prepare our students for those types of opportunities, or as Andre said, the 50% of jobs that we don't yet know what they'll be? How do you prepare your students for that environment?
Thank you, Mary. And let me first join my colleagues in welcoming all the parents and students to DU. And let me first thank Danny, because Danny, believe it or not, some of our students do end up working with people. So we thank you for the skills that the College of Social Sciences is putting into them. But, and the other reason that I want to emphasize some of what my colleagues have said before I go to the world of entrepreneurship is just as Andre said and Mary emphasized as well, since the day I come here, I've said that we have a dual challenge. The first challenge is to prepare students for their first day on the job. Because the world where students used to spend 30 years in one company and had a year to learn what they needed to do, those are done. People are going to change job between 7 and 15 times. You need to be productive on day one. You need to have the skills to get that job. So we're implementing programs that help students get those jobs, which could include technological skills, analytical skills, functional skills, and all of that. But the second challenge is exactly what Andre and Mary were pointing out, which is how do we prepare students for those jobs 15 years from now that don't exist yet? What are those enduring sets of skills that will stand a student in good stead, regardless of where the world ends up? And I have been talking to a lot of people in industry, my advisory board, fellow faculty at other institutions say, what are those skills? And inevitably, those skills come down to things like communication, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, sort of the broad skills that we've been referring to, and the research skills. And most importantly, the one that comes up over and over and over again is problem solving. And problem solving in domains that may not have been your major in college. You know, my former dean at my former institution and I used to joke because many a day she would ask me, so what do we do with that? And one time I just looked at her and I said, we're GPSs. And she said, what do you mean we're GPSs? And I said, well, general problem solvers. That's what we do all day. And that's what you will find that your student needs to learn to do as well, is solve problems, because that's what's going to stand them in good stead. One of the skills that repeatedly also comes up as critical to surviving in the world 15 years from now is that entrepreneurial mindset. And so at Daniels, in addition to our 8 other departments and our 200 faculty and staff, one of the things we have is an entrepreneurship minor. In fact, the very first course that a business student takes is called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In that course, students will learn about the technologies of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, AI, blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality, the Internet of Things, all of these things that will change the world that we live in. But it's not just we learn what these technologies are. In that first course, after they learn about these technologies in a very rudimentary fashion to begin with, they then get in teams and they have to come up with a plan or an idea for a new business based on one of these technologies. And that concludes with a competition among the teams that have come up with these ideas. So it's a fascinating thing. We call it the Madden Challenge. And in the days when we did this in person, last year we did this virtually, We could go to Marcus Commons of the Daniels College of Business, and you would have 32 teams displaying their ideas of how they're going to use technologies of the fourth industrial revolution to create a new business. And it is incredible how these 19-year-olds with rudimentary exposure to these technologies would come up with ideas that were really fascinating. And everything, I remember the first time I walked into this, my first year as dean, there were two young women wearing one a bright red pair of very high heel shoes and the other one bright blue. And I just said, nice shoes. And they said, that's our idea. We have a 3D printer and we use these to make these shoes. We'll send them to you in your size. When you are bored, send them back. We'll send you a new pair in a different style and melt it down, and it's recyclable. So,
I have admired your shoes, Vivek, I have to say.
I haven't tried one of those pairs yet. But the important thing to note about the fourth industrial revolution, while it's a course taken by business students as their first course, it is open to the whole campus. And about a third of the students in that course are in fact not business students. They're students from across campus. And we very much welcome that, because in my view, the best entrepreneurial ideas I've ever seen are always interdisciplinary. It's when that humanities student or that music student or the public policy student or biology student works with a business student to say what we can do. Following that course, what we do in the entrepreneurship minor is actually quite innovative. Instead of telling students, here are 3 additional courses of 4 credits each that you take, we offer a series of what we call grinds. And a grind is basically 1 day, 1 credit, 1 topic. So the grind might be, how do you make the perfect pitch to a venture capitalist? How do you protect your intellectual property? How do you form a team? How do you raise funds? How do you use a 3D printer? What we offer are about 30 of these grinds, and we tell students, for your entrepreneurship minor, take any 12 that are relevant to your business idea. And those are 12 credits that make up the next 3 courses that you take. And then following that, they take a course called From Idea to First Dollar, which basically says, you in this course have to come up with your first dollar of sale from your idea. And to give you an example of what a grind is, one of the grinds is on ideation, coming up with new ideas. That grind, as the instructor has told me, does not end. It's supposed to be 1 day, but it does not end till there are 1,000 unique ideas on Post-it notes on the wall by the end of the day from the students. That's when it ends. And so it's a fascinating exercise for students to come up with. So that's our entrepreneurship minor. That's how we create an entrepreneurial mindset, whether or not you think you'll eventually hold a business. And that ties into the university-wide ecosystem for entrepreneurship, which we call Project Excite, which is also going to be part of Daniels starting soon. And so we're going to integrate those two. And we're going to look into what we call the entrepreneurship life cycle. And the first stage in the entrepreneurship life cycle is what we're going to call inspiration, which is we want to inspire students to be entrepreneurial. And we're going to bring in well-known alumni and successful entrepreneurs to share their stories, so students can look at this and say, yes, this is what I want to do as well. And again, the entrepreneurship minor, while offered through Daniels and Project Excite, are all university-wide interdisciplinary programs open to all students. And so our goal is to create those entrepreneurs all over campus.
One of the things that you highlighted, Vivek, was how some of the greatest ideas in this entrepreneurial engagement come from those who may be humanities majors or biology majors or otherwise. And I've read that Google and other employers like that really prize students who've had that type of cross-disciplinary or transdisciplinary experience. That I think the thinking is that there's greater plasticity in their thinking, greater creativity in their thinking. And so I don't know if you could highlight some of the interesting combinations that you've observed among your business students. What different types of fields of study are they combining, and then what do they go off to do? I'd be interested in hearing.
Let me give you a couple of examples. So we had some music students working with our business students in an idea last year through Project Excite. They were one of the teams for our acceleration program. What they were coming up with an idea is to say, when a music student goes for an audition, it would be really nice if they could virtually simulate the environment in which they will be auditioning. So the whole idea was to say, if your audition is going to be in this facility in New York City, so that you don't end up there and say, oh man, the acoustics are quite different from what I was expecting. They were creating a business to allow musicians to practice in the environment in which they might be auditioning and putting forward their performance. Clearly an idea that would require some knowledge of music and business and what that involves. Another idea, which is a couple of young women that are running with this idea, it's called One Kind Cup, which is the idea of a cup that's fully recyclable and disposable. And this is an engineering student and a business student that are working together on. A third idea that had, it's a fascinating idea that had some liberal arts students working with business students as well, was the idea of a reusable straw, which would be used as a bracelet. But the fascinating thing, because as you know, many communities, including places like Washington, D.C., are outlawing bracelets. The fascinating thing—
Straws. They haven't gotten to bracelets yet.
Not bracelets, straws, right, that's true. And no bracelets have been outlawed yet, as far as I know. But the fascinating thing about this straw was that as a young woman, if you used it in your drink, it would tell you it had been interfered with some drugs.
Oh, fascinating.
Herself as a young woman on a date. And so there are some wonderful ideas that these students come up with, and they come up with this in conjunction with their friends who are in this class.
That last idea is fascinating, really impactful. Well, thank you, Vivek. Haluk, I'm going to turn to you. There is a stereotype of engineering programs, computer science programs being rather rigid and inflexible. How is it different here at DU? How do you instill the liberal arts education and values in the undergraduate education in your college in particular?
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, indeed, there is truth to that. The engineering and computer science, especially engineering curricula, tend to be really full and appear not very flexible compared to other majors. And part of the reason engineers and scientists need to learn not only complex scientific theories and concepts, but they also need to learn how to apply them to solve technological and social problems. And at the same time, technology is developing and expanding very rapidly, creating more and more material for students to learn. So this confluence of theory and application is what seems, and the rapid expansion of these fields seem to be what makes our curriculum rigid and full and difficult. But at the same time, I think the same confluence can make it challenging but feasible, challenging but flexible, and challenging, most importantly, challenging but fun. And so the key observation in that learning is really difficult if you lack motivation and context. And we feel that applications can provide both motivation and context for students. And for example, if I'm learning differential equations in the abstract, well, there are some people who like it and do it. They tend to be usually mathematicians, but for most people it's hard because we don't know why we are learning this. But if I'm learning differential equations in the context of designing a circuit to solve a renewable energy problem, for somebody who's passionate about the environment, now I have the context and motivation, and I understand why I need to learn these concepts, and I can put them in applications. So if we notice that but then the key is, well, every student is different. Everybody has different motivators, and so how do we go about that? And I think we are, in a sense, going in the opposite direction of a lot of things in education, where education is going mass, one-size-fits-all type approaches. Given our small size, we are going in the opposite direction. We are trying to individualize, personalize education and learning. So how do we go about that? The first year, all of our students take a 1 credit hour course. It's called Pathways in Computer Science and Connections in Engineering. where we use this assessment tool, which is called Indigo, that helps both the students and faculty understand what their motivators are, what their behaviors are, and their social and emotional perceptions, and then career-ready skills. So that leads to, at the very early stage, that leads to a self-discovery for our students, understanding what their motivators and behaviors are. At the same time, it helps them understand others. Because today, working in diverse groups is really an essential tool for success. So that, I think, is the beginning. Then we bring in a lot of project-based learning opportunities for our students. And the good thing about project-based learning is that you can still achieve the same learning outcomes through different projects. And what does different projects buy us? Well, it helps us tailor the learning experience according to students' passions and interests. So, for example, at the turn of the century, the US National Academy of Engineering looked at the achievements of engineers and computer science in the 20th century, listed them, but then the question is, okay, what about 21st century? So they came up with 14 grand challenges, and these are really large questions like make solar energy economical, reverse engineer the brain, and so on. And they also look at what attributes a 21st century engineer or computer science should have. And we heard a lot of interdisciplinary work, the importance of that, entrepreneurship and all that. So indeed, that's what the National Academy of Engineering came up with. So the 5 components of this program, which is available to our students starting from the freshman year, are interdisciplinary education. Now engineers need to know more about social sciences, because what we are doing is affecting daily. You can see how technology and social sciences are interlinked. And so interdisciplinary research, and now we are moving more and more into innovation technology. So research, hands-on projects, and also entrepreneurship. Like Vivek talked about all those opportunities, and indeed they are also a collaboration among different schools. And also they need to understand, this was very clear, that the engineers and computer scientists need to understand better the social and global dimensions of their work. And so again, I just echo this big theme here, the importance of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary learning and training. So this program we expose our students to this program, and they can pick any of the 14 grand challenges. Then we will match them with a mentor, and the mentor will help them tailor their curriculum according to their passion. So if somebody wants to do, say, research in certain area, the mentor can be expert. But for example, I had some students come to me, they said, okay, we want to do reverse engineering the brain. And I said, fine, then these are the courses, the additional multidisciplinary training you need if you need to do that. And so we sit down with the students and then tailor the curriculum and their activities around their passion. And so I think that's really not only prepares our students for the current work environment, but also make them much better self-learners. They become self-aware what their motivators are, what are the areas where they need to spend more energy. We don't tell them you're bad in this and so you can't do that. No, that's not the point. Some things we do very easily without much energy. Some things we need to spend more energy. It may look low on our profile, but we train them. Okay, so maybe public speaking is hard for you, but here are the things you can do to learn. And working in groups, maybe it's hard for you, but we emphasize really not just working with other engineers, but also with students from all other schools at the university. So just to summarize, our approach is individualized learning, finding the motivators of the students, making them understand their behaviors, essentially they become gradually their own teacher. And that's the transition we need going into 21st century. As you know, technology, workforce demands are changing constantly. If someone cannot adapt after 5-6 years, the degree is not worth much anymore. So the key is not just to learn all this advanced technology, but to learn how to learn. And we really want to achieve that goal through individualized learning.
That adaptability that you've highlighted, the learning how to learn, is a theme that has really tracked all of the different comments today. And so I appreciate your highlighting that. Haluk, one of the things that struck me most in coming to DU was the percent representation of women among the student body and also the recently appointed faculty. And in fact, I welcomed your new faculty one day last week. I think there were 7, and about 5 of them were women. I was very impressed with that. And you yourself have been strongly committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion values in the engineering school, in the engineering curriculum. I wonder if you might just highlight a bit of what you've done or you've seen over the last several years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's critical. I mean, demographics are changing. Tomorrow's workplace will be a very different workplace, and we emphasize to our students that the diversity is a wealth. Looking at a problem for different angles. Think of it, if I have an object, if everybody is looking from this angle, you only see part of it. And if you can look at from different angles, then you have a much better understanding of what you're dealing with. So we emphasize that. We actually use Indigo to do team matching, and in terms of gender, in terms of also other behavioral characteristics. We sometimes form harmonious teams where students are similar, sometimes complementary teams where they are very different. So we train them to work in diverse environments. But obviously, for this to be effective, we have to have diversity everywhere, especially in our faculty lines. Unfortunately, engineering and computer science is one of the lagging disciplines in this area. You know, it's, we work very hard in our recruitment efforts. You know, we want to make sure we attract faculty to enrich the learning environment of our students. We also have programs like we call jointly with natural science and mathematics, STEM, equity in STEM, where we put students in cohorts, we bring in diverse faculty, and I think, you know, the power of diversity is really there, but it's hard in our discipline, and we are working very hard to make everything diverse, equitable, and inclusive.
Well, thank you for all of your work. It's quite evidently paying off, so thank you. Fritz, I'm going to turn to you. And my question for you is how international studies has changed. How is the curriculum that our students will engage with today different, possibly, than what you were instilled with as an undergraduate student? And how might it still change further? You're muted. I'm sure you're being very wise, but we can't hear you.
You missed the best part already. So
all right.
Let me add my voice of welcome to that of my colleagues and to all of the parents and students listening in. What an extraordinary time. I was listening to my colleagues and thinking I want to be a student again. I mean, listening to the exciting opportunities on the DU campus, it really is extraordinary. And like Mary and Vivek, I'm fairly new here, and I too was drawn to DU because of this kind of dynamism, as the provost put it, but this level of engagement and the focus really on students and faculty interacting with each other. Which I think is not that usual, frankly, in higher ed. It really drew me to the place. To answer your question, though, Mary, I guess the question of what isn't different in some ways. there's an old curse, Chinese curse, I guess, that goes, may you live in interesting times.
Well, that we do.
And we do. I mean, really, in international affairs, there's really not been a moment in my lifetime that is as unsettled as this one. The sort of structures of the world order that we were used to, the liberal world order that the U.S. really built in the post-World War II era was already under stress, but it's really crumbling fast now. And so there's so much in flux now in the international world and I could go through them. I mean, the issues are familiar. I mean, that order was built on a notion that we were headed towards a world of democracy, of shared values about human rights, of open economies and free trade, of a secure order in which the U.S. was the central player, increasing, and certainly in recent years was the sort of dominant power. All of those things are changing now, or are under stress. So unfortunately, we thought democracy was a one-way arrow. Not so. Really, over the last decade, we've seen a decline in freedom and democracy around the world, and it doesn't take much to just casually look around the world and see the rise of authoritarian figures in many places around the world. Human rights, we were sure that we were headed in the direction of greater attention to minority rights, to women's rights, to the whole litany of human rights. There was something kind of universal about this, but those things are certainly under threat. And I could point to many places, the plight of the Uyghurs in China, et cetera, et cetera. And the global economy. There was enormous confidence. I was part of this. I worked in Washington for U.S. Senator Bill Bradley, and I had a fairly significant hand in making the NAFTA happen. I helped to orchestrate the passage of that. And we were enormously confident that the sort of trend towards free trade was the path forward, and that it would have enormous benefits. And it did in many ways. It certainly created enormous wealth and helped to lift quite a lot of people out of poverty. But the promise of the open economy, of free trade, is really not borne out entirely. And what we see is enormous inequality and incredible questioning of all of those premises in the world. And I would add just one more issue, which was not so much on the horizon a decade ago. It was beginning to be, certainly not when I was being trained, which is climate change and the global environment, which is if you have a long enough time horizon, it's an existential threat and very worrisome. Both the likely what is happening and what we now understand about the possible impacts, but also the frustration of the inability of the international system to respond to this and to solve it. Well, there's a gloomy set of issues, but it is an interesting time, and I can't imagine. I don't think there's ever been a more interesting time to start, to be a starting student, a first-year student interested in these issues. They are going to be with us for a lifetime. And what we do at the Corbell School is we're very interdisciplinary by nature. We have faculty with all kinds of background, and just like my colleagues, very problem-oriented, very much about problem-solving skills that will serve you for a lifetime. But what we're trying to do is prepare our students for a lifetime of engagement with these issues. Now, not everyone's going to go work in the government or in an international organization, but we're all going to be citizens, and we are all part of a society here in the U.S. or for our international students around the world. And we are preparing people for a life of engagement on those issues in whatever role, whether you end up in business, if you're an entrepreneur, and whether you're an engineer, whatever it is that you do. Like all of us, you can start at the Corbell School and major in international studies or public policy, which is our other major. But we really seek to prepare our students to engage with these issues over a lifetime, because at the end of the day, and we are a university, private university for the public good, I really do believe, and it's been true of the many, many students I've taught over the years, that engagement in these larger issues, these larger societal issues, and whatever level that you're doing it, adds purpose and meaning to your life. And so that's our ambition at the Corbell School. It's a wonderful place. We have an incredibly strong faculty members engaged on these issues, working, they're not just sitting back and thinking about it here. They're engaged with policymakers in UN organizations and the government. It's a very policy-oriented place. We're very proud of our tradition. Corbell, for those of you who don't know, was Joseph Corbell, was the father of Madeleine Albright. He was very distinguished in his own right. Before that, a Czechoslovakian who escaped from the Nazis and from the communist rule, and came to Denver after World War II and found a home here and raised a family that included his youngest daughter, Madeleine Albright, professor of Condoleezza Rice. So we have these two extraordinary luminaries, the first two women secretaries of state that we count as our own. A proud history here at the Corbell School. But really, coming back to your question, the truth is, we are in flux. We are actually, we don't have the answers. All of us are learning as we go, as well as our students. And I think that's a really exciting moment for our students. It's not like we have a canon of things that we're going to tell you, this is how the world works. We are grappling in real time with these issues. So what an exciting time to be starting out. I must say, I have to add that I also have twins. This, by the way, is a requirement of all deans at
Yes.
DU, and I have three sons, all of whom have successfully graduated from college, but it wasn't that long ago, and I just remember that in my own life, the extraordinary excitement of this moment of starting college. There are a few others. So best wishes to all of you parents, and certainly to your students. We really look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Fritz. So Jennifer, we've just heard of all the riches that DU has to offer, and like all of our colleagues, I want to go back to school. But a student is faced with all of these choices. How are they guided? How are they supported in making choices? And how might they think about interdisciplinary work or dual majors or what have you? Who is helping to advise and support them in these choices?
Absolutely. Thanks again for everybody's comments. I think it's really hard to go last because I think all of you together have really painted such a beautiful picture of DU. I don't know how I can add any more to that. So thank you so much to my colleagues. I think the big thing to remember is these are, we began here with Danny's comments. These are 18-year-olds who think that, their understanding of biology or psychology is what those fields are. And the biggest takeaway for, I think that I can give any of you, students or parents who are listening in there, is that your students are going to be fine. Whether they're coming in with a thought about what they want to major in, they're positive that they're going to be a biochemist, like my oldest daughter, and that lasted about 3 weeks. Or if they're like my other daughter, who are not twins, thank you, I have 3 daughters, but different ages.
How unusual.
Right. One's a first-time first year who is completely undecided. All your students are going to be fine. They're absolutely going to be fine. That's the most important takeaway that I can tell you right now. That we have support for our undeclared students. We have support for our declared students as they're looking at different kinds of degree combinations. I think that is the important takeaway, is that when students come here, they're not just looking at one field. They're looking at one field and another field that might complement it, or another field that really might extend that in a different kind of way. When Vivek was talking about music and business, or if we think about international relations and biology, right? The things that are really brilliant in the way that our students are finding those kinds of combinations. As our students begin here, as their first-time first-year students, they're immediately assigned an academic advisor with their first-year seminar faculty member. And those faculty members should have already been reaching out to you or to your students to just to get to know them a little bit before they enter DU, whether virtually or here in person, and just give them a sense of what classes are going to be like. I think it's really important for our students to understand that it's important to take a wide and adventurous mix of classes. I think if you were to ask any one of us on the panel what our favorite class is, I think if we don't talk to Andre, whose favorite class was most likely to be calculus or maybe Halup 2, you'd find out that—
Me too.
You too? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, as a lawyer, as somebody who studied law, right? I mean, the calculus as your favorite class is kind of a wacky combination, right? And we want students to be able to make those significant aha moments in classes that are completely unexpected for them. Because what we want them to do, if they only leave college, if they only leave DU having mastered a set of facts from a set of courses, we haven't done their job, right? We push our students to learn how to drive their own intellectual and creative development so that the value of their education remains active. It doesn't have a short shelf life, right? So things that we studied in college may no longer exist right now, but we want to engage our students now with those skills, those adaptability skills that we've talked about. Things that are super important that you've heard throughout the talk today is to make a faculty connection, whether that's a transfer student or a first-time first-year student. And I know as faculty, we're a little bit odd, right? We've got offices that are hard to find down corridors that are dark and twisted, and we've got floor-to-ceiling books. I mean, people are like, who are we? You don't know what to call us, if they're professor or doctor or what, but teacher, right? Or just come in. It doesn't matter. Just make that connection. You want to have somebody know you as a learner by the end of your first year here, right? So you have that academic connection to your academic community here. So get to know your faculty. Also try looking outside that classroom for those experiences. Academic connections happen outside the classroom, whether that is through internships or undergraduate research, or whether that's through community engaged opportunities or service learning, whether that's through government clubs or our Alpine Club, which is our most popular student club. Finding connections outside the classroom is just as important as inside the classroom. We know that our happiest students are the ones who make the multiple connections to campus. So I know we're at time. I think we could all use another hour to share our enthusiasm for what your students are about to embark on here. This is a wonderful opportunity in these uncertain times to learn, to find out more about who they are and who they want to be as learners. So I'll end with that, but just knowing that we're looking forward to seeing you all virtually or in person on campus in the next 3 weeks.
Very good. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you to all of my colleagues. Thank you to all of the parents and students who've joined us. Please follow up with any questions that you might have. And we're so looking forward to welcoming you on campus. So thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.